We're going to call to order the regular meeting of Oxford Township Planning Commission dated August 25th, 2022. If we would all rise and give our respects to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Well, Susan, I guess you're going to note the roll then.
You want me to note it or call it?
Well, maybe just call it tonight then.
Okay,
Here.
Spiz.
Here.
Hunwick.
Here.
Ballard.
Here.
Turner.
Here.
Nold.
Here.
Berger.
Present.
There is a quorum.
We need a motion for the approval of the agenda this evening.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we postpone the site plan for 9B, preliminary site plan for applicant Frequency Wellness, and for them to come back to us at another meeting. In the research I've done, there's incomplete review from the consultants, engineering, fire, and legal, and there's discrepancies in which plan they want to use.
So you're making a motion to amend the agenda to
Yes.
remove item 9A?
Yes, 9B.
9B.
Yes.
Oh man, okay, let me get down to here then. No. Well, I heard the motion, but I have to have support for the motion. Is there any support to the motion that John made?
I'll support it.
Mr. Spiz will support it. We have a motion made by Mr. Nolden, supported by Mr. Spiz, to amend this evening's agenda to remove under unfinished business 9B from the agenda due to the lack of documents from consulting representatives to the township. Let's do a roll call vote on that one instead of a yay and a nay.
Just got a couple. I just have a couple questions. Okay, so so you're asking to remove that completely from tonight's agenda, so we don't discuss it at all, correct?
Correct.
Is it okay? Is it because that your thought was that it's not in there at all?
I checked the packets. We were lacking engineering, fire, and legal review of the site plan, as well as there's a discrepancy in which site plan they want to use. There's two different concepts out there. They brought us a concept July 14th, and then they have a new concept, and I'm unclear.
Which one's in the package?
Yes.
Multiple in the packet? Is that what you're
I'm asking, or just the question is, could that be clarified through discussions?
That I can't answer because I can't speak for them.
We have a motion. We have a second. The planning commission can discuss a motion. So if you want to open discussion on the motion, Mr. Ballard, you have a right to do that.
Okay, I'm all set for right this minute.
Is there anyone else for discussion on the motion? Does everybody understand what the motion is doing?
Yeah. I guess I would ask the same question. Can we clarify the issues that are missing in the discussion?
Well, the way I heard it in the motion, and I'll
preliminary.
try and address it, and if I'm incorrect, then I'll be corrected. I believe he mentioned 3 consultants that we don't have the reviews from, and lack of information as to which site plan they actually want to have reviewed for approval, because we had an original one from a previous meeting back in July of 17th, if my record is right, when we had that meeting, and now we're here this evening with another set of documents for review. So he's asking to postpone it until we know exactly what the review documents are going to be when they come back from the consultants, and also which plan we're going to use to review. He said we lack that information right now, so he'd like to postpone it until we can have that clarification brought to us. Did I explain it properly, Mr. Knoll?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Does everybody understand that? Well, then I would like a roll call vote.
Noel,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Ballard,
No.
Hunwick,
No.
Spiz,
Yes.
Bailey,
No.
Berger.
Yes.
It is 4 yes, 3 no.
Okay, item under unfinished business, which was 9B, has been removed. So there were only 2 things under unfinished business, which will then take us to 10 after 9A, excuse me. So now we have an approval of tonight's
Chair, I'd like to make
agenda.
a motion that we approve tonight's amended agenda dated Thursday night, August 25th, 2022 at 7 p.m.
All those, I need a second to the motion, please.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, we have approval of the agenda for this evening. I need a motion for the approval of the minutes from the regular Planning Commission meeting of 7/14/2022.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Planning Commission regular meeting minutes dated 7/14/2022.
Do I have support for that motion?
Support.
Motion was made by Mr. Knoll, supported by Mr. Spiz. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next is commissioners' comments, if you have any this evening in relationship to what we're working outside of the agenda with.
No, sir.
Seeing none, I'll move on. Under public hearings, well,
To
technically,
do the public comments on items not on the agenda.
I'm sorry, what?
6.
The public comment, number
Oh, I
6.
apologize. I always seem to skip public comment. I don't know why. Is there anyone here from the public that wants to speak on issues that are not on this evening's agenda? And if you do, would you please come up and make your presentation, but try to keep it at 3 minutes and less, because we have a lot of things on the agenda tonight. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I can keep it brief.
Guys, I can stand here? It's okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Alrighty, Mr. Chairman, fellows of the board, thank you. My name's Ed Brennan, and I'm here today speaking on behalf of the chicken owners residing on White Pine Way, seated over there. We have acquired signatures and emails from a vast majority of the neighborhood community members who are unable to make it in today. They too feel the same way regarding the keeping of chickens in our neighborhood. Our goal today is that we are asking the Township zoning ordinance to be aligned with that of the Oxford Village's Article 3 regarding the keeping of chickens. This ordinance states as the following: that there are a maximum of 4 chickens per residential address can be permitted for personal use only and not for any business or commercial use. Roosters are strictly prohibited. Slaughtering is prohibited unless conducted in a fully enclosed structure, and chickens shall be provided and remain within a fully enclosed coop and fenced enclosure. Currently, our neighborhood is zoned in R3, which prohibits the keeping of farm animals. We would like the Township Board to change our zoning ordinance structure to match that of the Oxford Village for the following reasons. These chickens provide us with fresh, healthy eggs that contain 0 hormone additives. Their manure provides great fertilizer for our gardens. They help us become more sustainable with our food, with our gardens, and just in general. And then finally, as all of us have children, they really give the children an opportunity to interact with your non-traditional pets and kind of learn the value of hard work and just really get them outside more and away from their devices. The main argument that we have against chickens in our neighborhood is the concern of predators, such as coyotes. However, there is no statistical data that links caged chicken ownership to higher coyote encounters. In fact, the coyote's preferred diet does not consist of chickens at all. In the Oakland County Park article titled Michigan Coyote Facts, it states the coyote's diet consists of small mammals such as mice, voles, rabbits, and squirrels. These animals are part of our ecosystem and present a much higher risk of coyote interactions than chickens do. In conclusion, we are asking the zoning ordinance to be changed so we can keep our chickens. We are requesting the zoning ordinance to be changed to match that of the Village of Oxford's. Thank you for your time, and we hope that you put this on the agenda so that our neighborhood can continue enjoying the cohabitated living with their chickens.
Thank you for that comment.
Yep. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here from the public that would like to speak at this time on non-related issues on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, we're going to close the public comments section. Somehow I always skip it. We have no commissioners' comments from what I understand. Am I correct?
Correct.
Seeing none, we're going to move on to public hearings, which technically we don't have any under this portion of the meeting. We move to 9, which is unfinished business. Is the petitioner here for the applicant of Frequency Wellness LLC?
Yes.
Please speak.
Thank you. Come up here. Perfect. Hello, everyone. By way of introduction, my name is Gregory Atuma. I am the owner of Frequency Wellness. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone for their efforts last meeting and for the willingness to table it so that I could be here. Again, I apologize for my absence in the last meeting. I am fully abreast of the comments that were made, and our revised site plan that we submitted, I believe, does incorporate many of the comments that everyone made. So I want a point of clarification as to the change in the agenda with regards to the site plan removal from the preliminary site plan approval. So we're going to just refer to only the special land use, is my understanding. So if I kind of transfer between the two, I apologize, but at this point, we're only looking for the special land use for the site, and then we'll take whatever comments are given on the site, and then we'll incorporate it into a revised submission for preliminary site plan. So I have no issue with that whatsoever, and I appreciate Commissioner Knoll for the clarification of what we're trying to accomplish today. So, kind of to bring it all up to speed, back in July, we submitted for an application of the medical cannabis ordinance that the township had approved, and we submitted an application in that overlay. We were awarded a retail permit in the overlay that is where our facility is at, between Helen Road and the fire station. In that application, we did submit the rendering that is the more colonial, more Federalist look, and that was submitted at that time to the Township Board, and was also a site plan in accordance with that. After that meeting, that again, I apologize, I was not able to do attendance for as I was out of town, is that there were some comments made to the site plan that we were then able to incorporate into revised site plan. So on the left here is our this one here is our old site plan, and this is the new revised site plan. In this review site plan, and I'll blow it up here a little bit. I apologize, not my computer, so I'm a little... Jim, I'll give you $1 if I can borrow your mouse. I just have gorilla hands. Thank you. In this site plan, we did much of what you asked us to do, and very candidly, we appreciate the input, and I think that's a better site plan for it. Thank you, Jim. We have, if you'll see here, we moved the handicap parking to the front of the building as opposed to where it was previously. That required us to move the building slightly north, and then you can see, if you can see here, we kind of cut this in to make it where this area had a previous unloading and loading, so we kind of put that here, so that way we could move the whole site north. But again, the big win here is that we're able to put in handicap parking in this spot. In addition to that, we are suggesting a prefabricated concrete fence to go in front of the residential, which would be on the east side of our property line. And on the property line that separates us from the fire department would be its cyclone or chain link fence. We admittedly were not able to do anything with the moving of the curb cuts and dealing with our engineers, working with MDOT, where they had pre-approved those curb cuts for both safety reasons and their determination of ingress and egress. We weren't able to do much with that because we candidly weren't able to offer them a different suggestion. And so we did leave the curb cuts where they are, but we did move the building north, so I think it creates a little cleaner look. We will be removing the third curb cut, and Jim, correct me if am I correct on that? There's a third curb cut to the south on the property that we're acquiring. We'll be removing that curb cut. We did, in our revised site plan, we did bank parking. I would ask that the Planning Commission consider not requiring that. Its location north of the village and its location by the fire department, I think when we're not using our parking lot, I do think it would be advantageous to have a large parking available. We again hope to fill the parking lot. Obviously, we will build at the discretion of the Planning Commission, but this report shows bank parking, but we would ask that we aren't required to do that, because I do think the parking will be necessary, and I do think it'll be beneficial to others to have a parking lot available to them when our business is not in use. And the last thing is, I think, getting to what Commissioner Knoll was getting at, is that we did submit additional renderings. And let me get to that page. I apologize here. So the original one went up on the top left was what we submitted, more of a Federalist type building. Again, we were trying to kind of pay homage to the village and the downtown area. And then when taking the comments from the Planning Commission, we then submitted the one to the one on the bottom right hand corner. I do believe now that if I'm only here for site plan approval, that I guess I should be looking specifically at this one as the one that is the one we submitted to the township. We do believe it fits what the township is looking for, and if we are able to move forward with that, we appreciate that. If you want us to move forward with the other one, we'll do that, or if you'd like us to come back with a hybrid of the two, again, we understand that we're developing at the pleasure of the Planning Commission. So that is, in short, our presentation. We have given a revised the site plan, which shows the engineering, which I believe meets all, absent the curb, requests of the Planning Commission, and then we have suggested an alternative rendering. However, it was the board that approved that initial rendering, and I would like the Planning Commission to consider it if that is something they would like. However, we'll do whatever the Planning Commission
For clarity, when you mean original, the one that's on the top?
I'll say the Federalist look and the more modern look.
Okay.
And again, now that it's not on the agenda, if you'd like us to kind of hybrid the two, we can do that.
I think what we're going to do first, because we're going to follow the rules of this particular portion, which means after your conversation, we open this up for public hearing.
Okay.
So we're going to make a motion then to open the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion, we open up the public hearing at 7:16.
Do I have support for that motion?
I'll support.
Motion made by Mr. Knoll, supported by Mr. Hunwick. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Our public hearing is now open for public testimony, so anyone that wants to speak at this time, please feel free.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Nice to see all of you. All right, I did take notes, but I'm somewhere in between my readers and not, so bear with me. All right, so my name is Ashley Ross. I am a member of the Oxford Village Council, as well as a member of the Oxford Downtown Development Authority. And for a little while, I was a member of this planning commission, so it's nice to see all of you. I've had conversations with many of you, as well as incoming and current business owners, property owners, residents, renters, and more that are directly impacted with this particular property. The property at hand is unique because it directly butts up to the village property and the DDA district, which is why I wanted to come speak to you all tonight. And it's my understanding that the provisioning center overlay districts, they were very carefully thought out. I am aware that countless hours have gone into selecting sites that would help drive business to Oxford, as well as help eliminate some blighted areas or underutilized spaces within the township. That has been a common goal amongst our municipalities, committees, commissions, and to improve gateways, especially on the main thoroughfare coming into and out of Oxford. And I do say Oxford as a whole right now, whether it's township, village, etc. And this also includes extending services up and down M24 and improving the visual impact of buildings in these same spaces. So I have reviewed all of the documentation presented over the past couple months with the Planning Commission, and it is my opinion that our applicant has gone above and beyond anything that our communities could have asked for, and that we actually have an opportunity here to kind of all work together. So the village's tagline is "Small Done Right," and I do want to take a brief moment to read to you some of the Oxford's DDA's mission and the vision, since the property is literally right next door. So the Oxford DDA is dedicated to the promotion, development, and historic preservation of downtown Oxford. And I'll read you the first part of the vision for the DDA as well. And it is: the welcoming, pedestrian-friendly downtown of Oxford offers a unique shopping experience with a variety of specialty shops, galleries, and eateries housed in beautifully restored historic and complementary vintage-styled buildings. The entry to the downtown is lined with professional offices in a mix of converted residential dwellings and a compatible steeped pitch roof village with scaled quaint buildings set back from the sidewalk, showcasing well-manicured front lawns and lined with mature shade trees providing a canopy over the road. Now, I do understand we are talking about a different district. However, I did want to bring it up because of the location specifically. The average person driving by or stopping into this business is most likely not going to differentiate between the DDA, the village, the township because of where it's located. Essentially, when this building is constructed, it would optically be a part of the historic downtown, which is why it is critical to keep in mind the greater surrounding area and what that means. In a letter from the applicant on June 16th, the proposed special land use will be compatible with the adjacent uses of land. It goes on to say that the size of the proposed building, an approximately 26 foot tall, including peak, single-story building and its federal style character will have no negative impact on the adjacent land or the surrounding neighborhood, and will complement many other buildings in the township and village.
You're getting close to the end.
I know. You know I like to take my time. Normally there's not so many people. I'm sorry.
I get it.
All right. So I just wanted to take, to wrap that up really quick, the new design presented this evening, I know we're not necessarily getting into that, but I think it might come up in discussion. I really think you're far off the mark with the new design, whether that is the Federalist Building or some kind of cohesive plan together to really keep in mind all of the entities that are going to be impacted by this decision. And I think that the applicant has, addressed parking, fencing. I know there's some other things to go into, but in terms of the style, please keep in mind the historic nature of the downtown and that this really is the entrance into 24 once it's constructed into our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Come up to the podium, please.
I need more than 3 minutes. No.
Oh, no. You're testing us and you know who we are.
After 3 minutes,
I know where
there's a
you board
room.
the bus, right, yeah. Michael, John, Justin, Ed, Tom, Corey, and Robert, and young lady out the end here. Thank you. I'm Rod Charles. I live on Beamer Court in Oxford. Couple roles I'm here. First of all, I can't repeat what Ashley just said for time and among other reasons, but basically I agree with what she just said. As a township board member, I would say this too, that when we had our meeting, we spent a lot of time going over these things, and the first proposal is what we enthusiastically approved, the colonial style of building. So I'd encourage you to stick with what the board has already looked at when we went through the blueprints and everything else like that. The board was very much in favor of the colonial style of building. The second thing that Ashley talked about, I'm also in the DDA, chairperson of the DDA, and one of the things we're trying to accomplish in Oxford is retain that sense of history. So you look at the buildings here, those two renderings, it's obvious which one would fit and which one wouldn't fit at all. So I'd encourage us to think about it for this proposal and future proposals as well. With all respect to the second rendering, that doesn't look like Oxford to any of us. Looks like a different community. So here again, I won't repeat everything that Ashley said, but if you would stick with that colonial style facade, I think we'd be in really good shape here in Oxford. We've been doing a lot of great work in downtown, the DDAs, as you know. Ed, you've been through this before, you know what we've gone through, so it's let's keep the ball rolling and stick with the right kind of designs. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Aren't we here to discuss just a special land use, not necessarily renderings?
We're here to discuss special land use. But it's public comment. I'm trying to keep it.
Public comment on special land use. That's it we're talking about.
If you think it doesn't affect the fact of the special land use with the comments, that's what you're saying we shouldn't?
I mean, from a rendering perspective, I can understand the comments and I appreciate them, but from the specifics for the special land use, I don't understand how it makes a difference personally. Unless if I'm off base, please let me know.
But let's see what we have in front of us one or two more times, and we'll go from there.
How you
Go
doing?
ahead, sir.
My name's Corey Hardy. I've been a medical cannabis user for a good decade now. I think that this facility would do a lot for Oxford, bring in a lot of new faces, be able to welcome a lot of new people into the town that wouldn't necessarily have made the trek out. It's currently in an open space, vacant lot. This would do nothing but good for the city. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name's Kevin Oberly, and I'm not an architect, so I won't talk about the building. But just wanted to speak out in support of Greg and the proposed development. I know him and also work in commercial real estate, so I think it would be a great benefit to the community, including the tax dollars. And also with Corey, I've had 2 shoulder surgeries, 2 knee surgeries, and a couple of foot surgeries from football. So recently discovered medical marijuana and really appreciate the benefits as opposed to traditional opioids. So I think it would be a win-win in many respects for the community.
Thank you. Is there anyone else at this time?
Good evening. Mary Ann Keynes, a resident of Oxford Township at 149 Stony Lake Road. I apologize for my voice. Unfortunately, sinuses have taken over, but I did want to come out this evening to once again address the concerns of the Oxford Township residents in regard to the selection of this particular parcel for a medical marijuana provisioning center. We have nothing against the petitioner. We're looking at the selection of the parcel of the land itself that we have questions and concerns about the location. And I'd like to recap a little bit about what I did quickly. I made mention at the July 14th meeting. There were 4 major categories that I wanted to outline concerns regarding. And the first one is the unfitness of this location for this type of business. First of all, it is residential nearby. It's not a commercial area. If you recall, when we voted on bringing marijuana, both medical and recreational, into Oxford Township, we were told it was going to be in the industrial zones. It never mentioned moving and transitioning to commercial parcels, and certainly not near residential areas, of which we do have a school across the street. We have Goddard School. We also have the educational institution nearby across the street. It's walking distance to the Oxford High School, and we have, the McLaren Medical Urgent Care Center, and also it's my understanding that we're still, as an Oxford Township, our supervisor, Mr. Curtis, is pursuing Beaumont Hospital. So would a hospital want to move into a location with a medical marijuana provisioning center just a couple hundred feet away? So looking at that particular, the unfitness of the location of this parcel for this business, I'd like to transition into what concern that I've spoken about before you many, many times, and that's traffic flow. To me, that Lapeer transitional part of M24 is one of the most unsafe areas that we have on M24. There's a blind curve right there. Not to mention there's a speed limit sign increasing from 30 to 40 miles per hour. So as you're coming around that blind curve, most individuals driving are accelerating at that point in time, and now you're talking about doing a stop so that somebody can get into the parking lot of this facility. I think that's a very dangerous section. excuse me, there's no official turn lane there, and as the petitioner mentioned at the July 14th meeting, they said that you can make at that from out of their parking lot, you can directly make a left to go southbound on M24. So in order to do that, you would have to cross the two northernmost M24 lanes, not have any salvation or little space of a left turn lane for egress, freedom, you know, a little bit of flexibility there, and you'd go right into your southbound lanes. So especially in the winter months, which unfortunately in Michigan is more than I would like to have, it's very icy and sometimes not salted or unforgiveness. You think you're going to get out and you don't get out in time, and then you're in the middle of traffic during unsafe periods of time. And M24 is traveled quite frequently, you know, unfortunately early in the morning till late in the evening, so there really aren't a whole lot of time frames in which there would be a break in traffic flow. And my understanding too is looking at, I know we're not talking about the site plan, but there was not going to be, and MDOT was not allowing an apron to be added to M24 for safe egress and into the and out of the parking lot at this location. So that also concerns me. So that is kind of a recap about the selection of M24, that parcel of that stretch of road. And again, the third point was just the parcel selection. You know, it was talked about being hard to develop. We talked a little bit at the July 4th meeting where there wasn't a really identifiable criteria that was used to deem it hard to develop, and that we were looking to, you know, try to make a blighted parcel to something where there might be a better building for this current petitioner or future businesses that might move in down the road. But there was some question as to regarding the
Mr. Chairman, that's 3 minutes.
That's past 3.
Okay.
You're getting in a time limit here.
Okay, I'll wrap up. But anyways, the fourth point was talking about the current state of the marijuana, and I just wanted a business, and I just wanted to bring up real quickly. Our meeting was July 4th, and the Detroit Free Press on July 17th has this article, and if you would like to see it, I certainly can leave it with you to make a copy of it, but the title of it is Michigan Pot Shops See Profits Go Up in Smoke. Very interesting article. It talks about
Mary Ann, that's probably not related to the special land use to us here, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we would rather keep it
or keep it on track. Okay. Well, just, you know, with the fact that the village has approved 9 licenses, and now if this particular parcel is approved, there'll be 3 for the township. That's 12 medical and recreational mixed marijuana sites within 3 miles. And Oxford Leader just reported we only have like 17,000 plus.
You're well beyond 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's time.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. I just want to bring up quickly just yesterday's Oxford Leader. We were all very surprised at how quickly this all got the licenses and moved to this point. And
we got to cut it off.
Yeah.
but it was interesting to see that $7,500 was just donated to the Oxford Endowment to Mr. Curtis from one of the petitioners that got their site approved just July 14th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, you can approach the podium.
I just didn't know if we're running too much of time.
No, we're not out of time, but we're trying to keep it to 3 minutes per person.
Gotcha. Okay. My name is David Gordhammer. I think that besides the buildings looking beautiful either way, I know that's not what we want to hear. They do look beautiful, but like, I think that this development would really enhance and improve a lot of things in our community, and I support it. I think that, you know, there's a lot of the negatives about it, I think, can be addressed. But yeah, I totally support this as far as it being something that can bring in business and as well as bring jobs, and so I think it's a good direction to go. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Wander. I have been associated with Oxford for 40 years, a resident for 25, and a business owner for over 10. And I want to reiterate what Ms. Kane said. I own Oxford Tan and Spa, which is directly adjacent and south of this property. And I have extreme concerns with regard to the value of my property, how it's going to affect it when I decide to retire, when I decide to sell, and as well as the article that was published in the Oxford Leader. I think the timing of this is extremely curious, needless to say. $7,500 given by this provisional center that's coming. Not happy. Many residents are very unhappy with this. And again, I've been a member of this community for 40 years, almost since I was in high school. I'm 54. Very concerned about the provisional use as well as this center going in, directly possibly affecting my business as well as the value of my property. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So, yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Joe Say, 55 West Drainer in Oxford. I've been also involved in Oxford for nearly 40 years, a long-time business owner, property owner. And just a couple things that were said here, I just want to bring to your attention. We talked about turning south out of the property. We talked about the traffic. Well, I don't think this will generate anywhere near the amount of traffic that the McDonald's generated while it was there. There's a McDonald's there for several years, and as far as I know, there's never anything negative on traffic flow or accidents. It has a correct zoning, and I want to make sure I state I have nothing to do with this facility or this business, but I am an Oxford business owner, and I welcome neighboring businesses. I think there's room for all businesses to thrive and survive in Oxford. So one last thing, I also lived off Lincoln Street for several years, which is right attached to Helen Street. I had to turn left and out of there every day, and I never had a problem. You just had to be patient and wait for traffic to clear, and I had no problems. So the two things that were brought up about the traffic and the congestion, I think are null and void. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Someone else want to speak?
My name is Kitty Pugliese. I'm a resident of Oxford Township, and again, I just want to point out what I had spoken about when we were here last, and that has to do with the residential neighborhood that is just behind this special zoning area that they're petitioning for. I do think that it will affect the value of those homes. The homeowners in the area, I mean, it's not a high-income home spot, so for these people to be hit with another condition that would drive their property values down even further would be kind of very hard for them to recuperate from. Where would they go? I mean, so I think that's a direct hit for them, and that is something that should be very strongly considered in this decision, because it's right there. It's 40 feet from the beginning of that residential neighborhood. You're going to build a concrete wall. That's beautiful. I think that's generous, but that doesn't prohibit what's to come afterwards. That's it, and thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak at this time?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion, if there's no other person to speak, to close the public hearing at 7:38.
We have a motion to close the public hearing. We have a second by Mr. Ballard. We have the motion by Mr. Knoll. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now we have comments from the township's consultants and staff. So, Zach, you want to get up and get us going?
Do you want me to move this here? Yeah, probably, otherwise I'm going to mash up the keys. Yeah, no worries. Not on purpose, but on accident. I appreciate it. All right, good afternoon, good evening. I'm going to start with kind of a quick refresher, both for the planning commissioners and members of the public, of special land uses and site plans and how they interact and do all sorts of fun things. So first, a special land use In the zoning ordinance, we have a couple different categories of uses. There are permitted uses, which the township board, in this case, in the zoning ordinance says, here are things you can do in this zoning district as long as you meet all the developmental standards, how far back you are, how tall you are, those types of things. You may need a zoning permit or you may need a site plan depending on if it's the type of the use. Special land uses are those uses that, because of their nature, may create greater negative externalities on the surrounding properties or the surrounding area. And Michigan Zoning Enabling Act says you can look at these more closely and you can put more conditions on them. The conditions ought to be related to negative externalities. So I'm going to use an example for a drag strip for cars. Just want to make that clear. It's 2022, right?
We were all thinking that.
Yes, yes. So if someone wanted to put in a drag race strip in an area where it's a special land use, if there's a church right next door and they're racing on Sunday mornings, that's going to have a very negative impact on the church. So it would be very reasonable to put a condition that you shall not race or run your engines for these cars before 12 noon on Sunday. And so kind of have that in your mind. That's what you're looking at, special land uses, that they may have a greater impact. That being said, your zoning ordinance, like all zoning ordinances, have criteria that you look at. They're called findings, where you need to go through and say, is this thing true or not? Is this thing true or not? Is this thing true or not? And if this body finds that they're all true, then you have to approve it. Now you can put conditions on it to make sure that it'll be true, but remember, it's if you find that the things are true, you must approve it with conditions that you deem necessary. One last thing is, special land uses also require site plan review. My recollection is that the revised plans came in on the 10th, and the consultants generally get 2 weeks to review them and then a week for the planning commission, so it was really tight. I guess I worked more efficiently, or at least was able to more focus, so we did want to get it here before you guys since you postponed it. Many communities will say, if you're doing a special land use, here's where that approval has to happen in relationship to preliminary approval or final site plan approval. Yours does not. So it's very common to do it at preliminary site plan approval, because that's when you kind of look at the big chunk things. But it could also be at final approval. There are some communities that say that's when we look at it. You could have it in between, you could have it before. So for the members of the Planning Commission and the public, know that there will be a go at the site plan. All right, does that make? Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm going to try to address the special land use. I am going to tangentially touch some of the site plan, because it is important to at least demonstrate that the property could be used when a site plan comes through. To reset where we are, this was postponed from a previous meeting. The medical marijuana provisioning centers do require a license from the Township Board. That has been granted. The property is 1 acre. It's in a couple of zoning districts, C1, C2, and within the marijuana provisioning overlay. That's a relatively recent, this past year, addition to the zoning ordinance. And the Township has 3 of those districts. They were drawn to be as closely as possible to the intent of those districts, where we looked at properties that we've known have been difficult to develop for one reason or another, because of the configuration, because of location, because of the size. In this area, we looked at it because we knew that this site had been vacant for a very long time, and the other properties up north. So when you compare this site, for example, to the new Culvers, it's really small. Greenfield development is a lot easier, and there's a challenge for most commercial enterprises to work on these older sites that are smaller and likely have things underneath the ground that you have to tend to. So there was deliberate action or deliberate thought in how the overlays were spaced out. And medical provisioning overlays are special land uses in the overlay district. That's why we're here. As far as area, width, height, and setbacks, again, we aren't talking about the site plan, but the buildings that's in the revised provisions demonstrate that it would be possible to build a building on there and meet all the setbacks. For access and circulation, it's been addressed that there are those 2 curb cuts from And this is addressed for special land use, the access and traffic. The 2 existing curb cuts, 1 will be removed, so it'll actually be going from 3 to 2. And anything that goes on that site today would increase the number of trips going to it, because it's a vacant property. The question is, would the number of trips be generated so high that it would cause a concern? So this site, for example, could have a Taco Bell on it, and a Taco Bell would generate likely more trips, at least all the Taco Bells I've seen. And if you had a Taco Bell and provisioning center together, that would generate even more trips, but we're not doing that. So it would generate more trips than what's there. The number of trips anticipated doesn't trigger a traffic study for this type of project. For parking, there is adequate space for parking. The dimensions meet, the setbacks meet. The revised plans do reduce the number of parking. It's still significantly higher than what's allowed, but that would be a discussion for final site plan. Essential services and utilities, I'll defer that to Mr. Sharp if you have any comments. They do not appear likely to conflict with landscaping or the dumpster on the site. Landscaping and screening, they are proposing all of that. That's consistent with the zoning ordinance. The one thing that has changed, and this is something that you may want to note in your approval as a condition, if you think it's necessary to reduce the impact, is the addition of the concrete wall against the property. There's also landscaping there, but the wall will definitely provide even beyond what landscaping does. So the landscaping and screening appears to be generally consistent. Lighting plan, we don't have that yet, but that would be as part of site plan review. They do demonstrate that it's possible to put signs on the site, both monument sign and a wall-mounted sign. For the provisioning center, so there are a couple of specific standards in your zoning ordinance. This proposed provisioning center would not be located with any other marijuana uses, so there'd be no growing on site, no transporting, no testing. It would just be a medical marijuana provisioning center. It would have direct access from Washington M24, which is one of the requirements in your zoning ordinance and determined how the districts were placed. It would be at least 1,250 feet from any provisioning center within the township zoning jurisdiction. It would be within a freestanding structure and within the overlay district. Both of the architecture renderings that we're shown do include windows. There's a provision that says the product can't be visible from outside, and how the windows in both of them are configured, it achieves that goal. A security plan hasn't been provided. That's a bit tricky because documents generally provided to the township become a public record, and we have worked through with Hans Rentrop on how we can collect those and review them. It's a bit of belt and suspenders because in order to get the license from the state, you have to provide that same plan to folks who do that day in and out. So that's something that can be done administratively, and the recommendation from Mr. Rentrop was we get it gets marked confidential, and that shields it from FOIA so folks don't know where the cameras are and those types of things, and we review it with the sheriff's department downstairs. For special land use review, so here are the criteria. The findings that you guys should be keeping in your mind as you look through this to evaluate it. This is in section 4.5, findings of fact of your zoning ordinance. The first one is the proposed special land use must be compatible with adjacent uses of land in terms of location, size, and character, and will have no negligent impact on adjacent property or the surrounding neighborhood, and will be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained so as to be harmonious and appropriate in appearance with the existing intended character of the general facility, and will not change the essential character of the area. Will not be hazardous or disturbing to existing uses or uses reasonably anticipated in the future. Will be an improvement in relation to property in the immediate vicinity and to the township as a whole. So remember the drag strip example, that when church is on, it's not appropriate. So you can put the condition that kind of makes the two uses play well together with its neighbors.
Zach.
Yep.
I have a question while you're going through all this, just to clarify. When you say if it enhances the area, are you talking both about the structure they want to put up and what business is going in there, or strictly the business that's going in there?
It's kind of tied to the use and the site. So if there are any site-specific things, like if a fountain was really nice as part of a rendering for a special land use and you thought that that was important to enhancing the relationship with the surrounding properties, let's say you're in the southwest and it helps cool the air, that's something that you should put as a condition. Does that make sense?
Well, that makes sense, but when you say does it enhance the area, the neighborhood, are we talking about the business or are we talking about the facility they want to build, the structure?
Both. Okay. And so, as mentioned, this site is located within the overlay district. That the intent of that district was to try to get compatibility as much as possible and reduce negative impacts by having high visibility in sites or buildings that hadn't been used. It is adjacent to those single-family houses we've known, and the applicant has proposed to put, in addition to the required landscaping, that concrete wall there to reduce cups or sound or other things going back there. And there won't be any access from the site to Helen. It'd be all just from Washington M24. Your second criteria or findings is the proposed special land use must be consistent with and promote the intent and purpose of this zoning ordinance and other applicable codes. So within your marijuana provisions, you have specific intent and purpose of it to facilitate the rehabilitation of blighted or challenging commercial areas, and this is one of those. We know there hasn't been any use on there for a while, and the Township Board granted the license for the site, so they thought it was appropriate. Your next criteria is the proposed special land use must not pose an unreasonable impact upon the natural environment. So again, the drag strip, if they're handling gasoline, fancy stuff, you want to make sure that there's containment system and other types of stuff. In this case, there doesn't appear to be any impact on the natural environment because it's already a previously developed site. In fact, it'll probably be better because they're adding significant numbers of landscaping and a stormwater management system so that the runoff would actually be reduced as part of the development. The next criteria is the proposed special land use must be compatible with the capacities of public services and facilities affected by the proposed use and will be served adequately by essential public services and facilities, or that the persons responsible for the establishment of the proposed use will provide adequately any such service or facility, and it will not create excessive additional public costs and will not be detrimental to the economic welfare of the township. I will leave the engineering to Mr. Sharp for those comments. Your next criteria is the proposed special land use must be consistent with vehicular turning patterns, traffic flow, intersections, view obstructions, ingresses and egresses, off-street parking, and other existing conditions in the district. So as mentioned, the spacing, if you came in today and there's nothing, nothing on the site, the spacing of those are closer than what we would allow, but it's a legally non-conforming condition. They've been there since most folks can remember. They're where MDOT have put them, so they're allowed to continue to exist. What are the other ones there? They are providing off-street parking, even beyond what's required. Let's see. Oh, and we do touch on that. Yes, it will generate more trips than the current state, but kind of weigh it in. Is the likely trips and turning patterns going to be enough to create a hazard beyond any other use there? You can't prohibit a use of the property because there's going to be trips, because that's a regulatory taking, and the Constitution doesn't like regulatory takings. The next criteria is the proposed special land use must be designed, located, planned, and operated so that the public health, safety, and welfare will be protected. It meets the developmental standards. It has received the license from the Township Board. It has to get license from the state and comply with all the state's requirements for this use. The specific aspects of lighting that addressed as part of site plan, you guys have standards with that. your next criteria is that the proposed special land use must be consistent with the goals, objectives, and future land use plan described in Charter Township of Oxford Master Plan. And the main comment there is that it isn't an area that's intended for continued commercial use. It's actually a mixed use, but the zoning ordinance isn't quite there just yet. So it is a commercial use in an area anticipated for future commercial use. So as part of your discussion, you'll go through and discuss those findings, whether or not you believe it's consistent with those. A site plan will be required. The security plan would be approved administratively, the process I described. If there are any specific things that you believe are important to make sure that the special land use would meet those findings, such as it shall have that concrete wall, that would be an appropriate condition of special land use. Otherwise, it could be a more general, that the site plan shall be generally consistent with what has presented here. And that's what I've got.
Thank you so much, Zach. That was very well presented. I want one quick question while you're still here. I mean, we don't really know the owner's intent for hours of operation, but those are things that when we go through with a site plan later, or would that be more like in the special?
It could be discussed at either. So if the thought is that a facility operating at 5 in the morning may cause impacts that would make it not meet your
What brought it up was the drag strip.
Yep. So if there are thoughts that this use, the hours of impact or hours of use would impact if it was outside a certain window, then those would be conditions you could place on the special land use.
So it could be more in the special land use than the site plan.
You have greater authority to put those conditions.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
if I can
sir.
shed some light. We have a 5.35 ordinance 67A marijuana uses for this type of facility. It calls out hours of operation from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Wait, whoa.
Excuse me. They cannot. I'm backwards. Thank you.
Man, I'm an all-nighter
Everybody was
sometimes.
listening. 9 a.m. Marijuana operation buildings should not be open to anyone besides the applicant, primary caregiver, or licensed grower, provisioning center operator, or secure transport between the hours of 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
There you go. You've already got it in your code.
All right. Well,
if there are cases where you think it may need to be even more restricted, you could put that in there.
yeah, I get it. We can discuss it later when we have discussion, and at that point in time, if we think it's necessary. But what I meant was, can it be brought up during site plan?
It could also, yes.
So we have a time to think about some of these things. Even if we grant special land use prior to, then we would come back with preliminary site plan, and then we go through for final site plan.
Yeah.
So we have some time elements for the planning commission members to think about some of these things that we still could put in place. That's what I'm trying to get to for myself concluded. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Joseph.
Is Mr. Sharp here this evening somewhere? Did he go hide on us? Oh, he is here. He's in the front row. Yes, sir. I think you're next on this list.
Yeah, so really with regards to the special land use, a lot of times the site plan is tied to it, but the site plan that was submitted at some point, I don't know, that never made it into the packet. It was never provided to us for review. So that letter that you see right there from July 1, that was from the past. From the previous.
That's what I thought.
Yes. So regarding the special land use, we don't have a lot of comment on that. I would just refer to the July 1 letter. With regards to the essential services of water. So if you want me to go through that, I can.
I don't think that technically it's...
our
they're
review
mostly design standards.
is on the site plan.
They're mostly
side of
design
things.
standards, and so from that side, it would be the site plan review more than the special land use review, for your point.
Correct. So I would just reference that letter for anything with the special land use. It applies to both that and the site plan.
Thank you. I think we had quite a bit in your letter, but I'm just going to skip through it real quick. I thought I had another person in here at this point. Chief? I thought I had the chief somewhere. I've lost him. Sorry.
Right there.
I didn't mean that. I was trying to put him on the, Mr. Schultz, would you like to make a quick comment, please?
You need to come forward. At this point, for the special land use, I don't have any comments. My comments were generated before because it was a preliminary site plan that we had generated before, and you do have those on file from before.
Because you are contiguous with this property.
Correct.
So as far as the special land use goes, you don't have any comments at this point in time? It's more related to the site plan?
Correct.
Okay. And you heard about the fence?
Yes.
And the comment and stuff earlier?
Yes.
So that would be during site plan conditions? Okay. I think from that standpoint, we did have, and bear with me here because sometimes I get a little bit behind on this crazy. There's 221 pages in this whole document. We had a letter, I think, from the previous letter we had from the attorneys was from the past too. We don't have a current letter right now. That's one of the reasons why we changed our motion for the agenda this evening. Thank you. So I think that being said, we're through with comments from the township's consultants and staff. The next would be review of correspondence from what we have been presented. So the next after that is Planning Commission discussion. Is there anyone that has discussion right now? Would like to make comment?
I do.
You do. Okay, Mr. Knoll.
I want to thank the applicants for their hard work on this. This is very tough. I spent a lot of time on this. I am in favor of the special land use being approved tonight. I would like to add 4 conditions to that special land use. One of them would be a permanent buffer screening along the back side of that, which would be a concrete wall. No fence, concrete wall. The second, on some of the other concepts we have talked about, I'm very encouraging about handicap parking being close to the door. I appreciate what you're trying to do for the community in regards to the parking lot, the larger parking lot. I would like to maintain that, to assist the DDA and the downtown development of the things that we do downtown Oxford. And I'm in favor of the curb cut from 3 curb cuts to 2 curb cuts. Now this would be requirements of the special land use, but we also want to make it known that we can make requirements of a preliminary site plan as well as a final site plan. But that's where I stand today. Thank you.
I think you said 4 things in retrospect of what you commented on.
Permanent buffer, handicap parking, the larger parking lot, and curb cut from 3 to 2.
Larger parking lot, okay. That was the one I missed.
There was some discussion on the July 14th meeting. We didn't really understand the good-heartedness of the candidate to add a larger parking lot at his own expense to help aid the downtown development.
Okay. Now I'm going to look in this direction. If anybody has any comments right now, or if anybody has any, wait, Ed, I'm looking this way first.
Oh, you look this way.
No
comments.
No comments from Mr. Turner. Mr. Bailey?
I do agree with Mr. Knoll on the concrete wall, the length of that lot. And I know there's been a lot of talk about the concern about traffic, but looking on the map, First Street and Helen Street both are within 50 to 100 yards. People make left turns in and out of there daily, so I really don't see the big concern with more traffic making a left turn 50 yards closer.
All right, thank you. Now I'm looking this way.
Ed, you want to go first?
Okay.
Ed?
Well, I just have a comment or a question regarding the concrete wall. What's the specific purpose of the concrete wall?
Mr. Chair, would you like me to field that, or you?
I can deal with it. And, originally, when we commented, there was an older wooden wall there, and it's actually been there from when McDonald's was still in operation. But after visiting the site and looking at it, to create a more permanent thing in nature for the benefit of the residents down the road, and I don't even know how long. I'm looking at your age. You're going to be around longer than me, probably. So, I think it's a great idea when Mr. Knoll came up with the idea of thinking of more permanent nature type wall for the benefit of the people that are residents adjacent to the property. So,
what's the purpose of the wall?
longevity.
But to keep people from transitioning from property to property?
It's gonna keep people, noise, and other elements.
All right, the noise, okay.
Yeah.
My concern is the concrete wall, and I'm gonna see graffiti on it, eventually.
Are you gonna be out there with your spray can?
No, I'm not gonna be out there with my spray can, but somebody else will be. And that's my concern. I guess, what's the problem with a hedge? Or is that not?
Well, this is an opinion now.
I'm just asking.
You're asking me a question, but I want you to make the statement.
I'm anti-concrete when it comes to stuff like that, because I just feel that it's going to decay over time. I see a potential for the graffiti to go on it, and
more than a building.
Yeah,
what about landscaping in front of the?
Well, that was the other
thing.
The way
I look at it is the. Sorry, I'm butting in here, but the concrete wall buffers the community in the back, and then we could be putting landscaping in front to help beautify that area back there. I don't see it as we have to have a straight just concrete wall for. Make it nicer. Those are things that we could be putting in the plan.
Yep, so the plan does call for plantings between the wall and the rest of the site. I would offer that concrete is the best way to deaden any sound impacts. Trees don't, shrubs don't, it goes through. It's the best way to do it. And additionally, this site is going to have a lot of cameras on it, so if you're out there with your spray paint, you're going to have to be very stealthy not to get caught.
Thanks for that comment, Zach. He'll be wearing a mask.
Yeah.
If I could say something.
At this moment, you can't do it right this minute. Wait until we're in commissioner's discussion right now. Good grief, Mr. Spiz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mine's more of a procedural question. I heard what Zach said, and maybe I stand corrected in my earlier comment about site plan approval, but I'm starting to think, since we don't have a true site plan in front of us, how can we do the special land use? But if we do a special land use, can we change it later? Because what if the site plan comes in and some things come to fruition over the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks for our next planning commission, all of a sudden the 4 things we listed now, I need to add 2 more, I need to take 2 away. So it's more of a procedural question. I don't want to get the cart in front of the horse per se, but I also want to make sure we're documenting everything in one place. I don't want to have 4 on a special land use, 2 on a preliminary, and 2 more on a final. I would like to have everything in one place, so when, like you said, Mr. Chair, 10, 15 years from now when none of us are here working on this planning commission, some of us might be, but some may not be. How do we make sure when somebody has to go back and look at this, it's easy to find and not have to search weeks to find this documentation? So it's more of a procedural question.
Yeah. So my recommendation to this body would be site-specific things that are important for the special land use. Document them now as a condition. We've heard the concrete wall. We've heard the 3 curb cuts to 2. We've heard the handicap parking. I forget what the 4th one was, but there are things that are specific to the site plan. You can also do kind of a general that the site plan is required that's generally consistent with this. And so if they come in with the building off on a far corner, then you can use that as to say, no, this is not generally consistent. But the things that are really important, you ought to document as conditions now, and then you can use the blanket generally consistent with what we're seeing today. Does that help?
So I think, any questions on this end? No. I think in conclusion of what we're looking at is anything specifically that you want to make sure is going to be included in the site plan, we should include it in the special land use.
Okay.
So I believe that we could put a special land use together with a motion and put conditions in it to make sure it meets the criteria of how the property can be used when they bring the site plan forward. Mr. Knoll?
Mr. Chair, as a suggestion, going on what Commissioner Spiz said, let's reduce that down to 4. Do the permanent buffer and do the curb cut, because that is that is apple pie and Chevrolet to that.
You mean reduction of the curb cut, yeah.
Reduction of the curb cut. That is part of that property. Then let's allow the handicap parking and the larger parking to be part of the site plan, because that's more generic to the site plan of a specific design.
I'd like to see the actual handicap parking in that motion.
Okay.
Because I don't like them to be across from driveways, and this would make them have to put the handicap.
Then you want to include the larger parking lot?
I don't have a problem keeping that in either, but that's me talking right now. It's not the rest of the planning commission. He just said we could have 2 here, 4 there, 2 there.
That's what I'm trying to avoid.
He's trying to avoid it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Turner, hang on. Okay, go ahead.
I think number one, we ought to include all of these things. And from my personal standpoint and experience, living in a residential area next to a commercial area, a concrete wall 6 foot high is a requirement, not only from the commercial people, but in this case from the traffic and noise and everything that you're going to get from 24. Now that wall can be made to look good on both sides. It can be painted, it can be finished, you can put landscaping in front of it, but from my standpoint, that's a mandatory. And you might as well put it in the first set of requirements.
So I guess, Mr. Nold, if you want to put a motion together and let the planning commission...
I have a motion I'll put together. Just bear with me as we work through it. Oxford Township Planning Commission resolution for special land use frequency wellness. Whereas the Marijuana Provisioning Center are special land uses in the Marijuana Provisioning Overlay District. Whereas the Planning Commission at its August 25th meeting held a duly noticed public hearing for the special land use and did receive public comment. Whereas the Planning Commission has authority to approve or deny special land uses as provided in 4.I and I9, and 19.4C special land use review of the zoning ordinance. And whereas the Planning Commission finds the special land uses meets the conditions noted on this resolution, whereas the Planning Commission finds special land uses meets with these conditions: a permanent buffer screening wall, handicap parking closer to the building, that they don't have to go through an aisleway, a larger parking lot, and a curb cut from 3 to 2. Whereas the Oxford Township Board granted approval of the Marijuana Provisioning Center license to the applicant for Marijuana Provisioning Center at this location. Now therefore be it resolved, the Planning Commission by majority vote at a duly noticed regular meeting held this day, 25th of August 2022, approves the special land use for frequency wellness for property located at 280 North Washington, Section 22 of Oxford Township, parcel ID 0422403001, property 0422403002, and part of the property 0422404021, subject to the conditions below. The Marijuana Provisioning Center shall comply with ordinances, the Township Code of Ordinance, the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, and the Medical Marijuana Facility License Act, and the successor ordinances and acts. This approval is only valid if the site plan that is generally consistent with the one reviewed as a part of this special land use is approved by the Planning Commission. The applicant shall annually prove of compliance with all applicable state and local licensing regulations. The applicant shall provide a security plan as defined in 5.3J1 of the zoning ordinance for review and approval. This approval shall expire or be no effect after 365 days following the approval. This approval shall only be valid acceptable if the applicant of any conditions of this approval and the signing of this resolution.
Just let me see this one very specific thing.
I have a motion by Mr. Knoll. Do I have support for the motion?
I'll second it.
It was seconded by Mr. Ballard. Does everybody understand the motion? Are we clear?
No,
You're not clear?
we're not clear. I would ask that Mr. Knoll read the first of the 4 items he has listed.
Permanent buffer screening.
No. It should be a concrete wall specific, right?
I can make it specific, concrete permanent buffer screening wall.
Okay.
I will amend that.
Do you want to put a height on it?
Standard would be 6 foot, wouldn't it? According to our zoning?
Well, for a privacy wall, yes.
Yes.
All right.
Permanent concrete buffer screening wall, standard height 6 foot.
And the reason I want to make that specific is I've seen where fencing has been used, which is wire screening. Within a year, whatever they put in it
comes out and you just got a whole cyclone fence there.
Thank you.
We need to do
Okay.
something more for the people.
Does that satisfy your
It does, sir.
discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Spiz?
We're open for discussion?
We are.
All right. On the parking, because I believe you just said additional parking. Now, what constitutes additional parking? Does it have to be all asphalt? Does it have to be all concrete, or can it be different?
Well, Zach can speak, but I'll speak in regards to it. It can be made with different components, yes, but not to the point where it wouldn't comply to the regulations of the township. So when you talk about parking, they still have to meet the conditions of a hardened surface and such not, but there are other ways under sustainable design that you can add additional parking with even grassy areas and do different things with the right types of materials. So we would have to leave part of that discretion up to the petitioner.
Right, until site plan, because
when we have a site plan.
I don't necessarily have issues with that extra parking. I have issues with the limited amount of green space that additional parking is going to create. So we can find a way
But
to meet it.
it's my impression if we would have looked at the site plan, which we had a preliminary site plan that we could have looked at from a previous meeting, we had the right perimeter of greenscape around the building in accordance with the township ordinance. So we already have that in place from a preliminary site plan that we had previously. So I can't assume that they're going to make anything less than that, and if they did, we wouldn't approve it, or you would have a right to deny it. So if you're asking for additional greenscape, you have a right to do that at the preliminary site plan when it's brought to us. It doesn't have anything to do with a special land use now.
No,
But if you want some...
requiring additional parking, which if you're going to put in additional green space, you might lose some parking. That's what I'm saying. Unless you're going to use alternative methods.
Right, and they have a right to do that.
Correct.
So I understand what you're describing. Do you want to take it up with Mr. Knoll?
Well, it's vague enough, and as long as we can have that discussion at preliminary,
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Because I don't think you say how many spaces or anything else.
Well, I just want to make sure we're together with this and we...
It's very vague in your comment.
My feeling is we have an idea of what they're going to do.
Well, what I'm thinking is right now, and when we were looking at it earlier from the earlier comments, when he said, does this really relate to the special land use? We still have a site plan we have to work from. Right now, tonight, we're trying to establish whether this is going to be okay as a special land use. We already have township approval of the use of the property, and the property is a permitted use, is being described and petitioned as a permitted use. So that being said, I guess I would move to call the motion. I guess I'd like a roll call vote if we can move forward with that. We have the motion, we have second to the motion.
I just
Zach?
wanted to quickly clarify that the 365 days null and void is if the use isn't established within that period. So if the use is established, it gets to continue to exist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for a year. Yeah, 365, I got that.
And the reason why that's very common in special land use is because conditions may change.
In the
around there,
interim, yes.
It's not,
Okay.
it has to close 365 days from now, just, they have to start it.
So Susan, I would appreciate a roll call vote.
Noel,
Yes.
Ballard,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Hunwick,
Yes.
Spiz,
Yes.
Berger.
Yes,
Motion passed.
thank you. Let's see where we're at here right now. I think this is about where we're at. If I can find my mouse here. That's too big. Can't put it in there. I can put this in there.
Walk away.
All right, thank you everyone for coming so far this evening. Thank you so much for your time. We are on to number 10 now with new business, which is preliminary site plan review for the applicant of Great Lakes Taco LLC, located up at the outlot of where the Myers parking lot is at 900 North Lapeer Road. So is the petition, do we have a petitioner here for the Taco Bell?
I'm the civil engineer representing them. I'm the only one here.
Okey doke. I guess you're it.
Okay. My name's Mike Wizanitis, and I work for Real Estate Consulting Engineers, or REC Engineers, and the developer's out of town. He asked if I'd come to the meeting and represent. And we've made an application to the township, and we received a review letter, and we've made some adjustments, and we've turned them in. But from our understanding is that maybe we can turn it in time, and so I'm not sure that we're going to be able to deal with.
I mean, we have some documentation from the consultants.
The provisions in order to get reviewed in here before would have had to have been turned in on the 1st of August.
So what I'm thinking is we didn't have the documentation in time for the review.
Correct.
We didn't get our revisions back to them in time. We turned them
So
in.
okay, what you're saying is you had documentation from the consultants as to
We got a letter from Mr. Sharp, and we made some revision changes, and we turned them in. And what I understand is we didn't turn them in time.
They haven't been re-reviewed.
Exactly.
All right, so for us to move forward with this, kind of puts us in a pickle. If without documentation that we should have had in time for this meeting, maybe a recommendation would be to postpone this. I don't know.
Mr. Chair, I would be in favor of that, but I've already done that once tonight, so I'll vote.
Well, no, I'm just trying
favor
to,
of-
I mean, I'm just trying, we need what we need. We actually do need consultants' documentation to help us move forward with your, I don't think anybody here is against Taco Bell. Let me put that out there forward. But there's a lot of concern as to where it's going, and a lot of concern about some of the utilities involved in this. And because I talked to Mr. Sharp earlier this afternoon in regards to it. So I think we really should have, my recommendation would be for us to make a postponement to get the proper time for you to put together everything that has to be submitted if it has not been, and then the consultants get the time to do the review so that when we come to the next meeting, we're pretty much on the same page.
I understand. And we've turned it in. They just haven't had a chance to look at it, is what I understand.
Okay.
Chair, I'd like to maybe make a motion to postpone the preliminary site plan review until the applicant Great Lakes Taco, until our next meeting, due to lack of information.
Well, we probably have to say for the next available meeting, because we never know what date that'll actually be until we have the business in front of us.
Still working on my motion, so configuring it. So yes, next available meeting.
I'll second that.
So when you say next available meeting, you guys don't have them, you don't know when your next meeting?
Well,
I mean, that'd be one of my questions.
we generally meet twice a month. That's our schedule.
Sure.
And it's the second and fourth Thursdays of the month. So, you know, you have to have things in so that people can get us the information we need, and we need a 15-day window for the public part of it too, under the Public Act of 110, so.
So 15 days.
Well, make, as soon as possible for you.
Absolutely. And we've turned, and I believe anyways, and forgive me, I'm not the one in charge of everything. The architect is also not available, and he's the one that turns everything in, and he told me. So I'm making notes, and we'll try to get
Zach, you don't have any documents yet, do you?
as possible.
Not the revised one. So, I'm just looking at my fancy calendar on here. For the September 22nd meeting, we would need the revised materials and plans on September 1st.
That's close.
Perfect.
Yeah, because he needs a 15-day window minimum.
But this doesn't require a special land use or public notice?
No, this is just a site plan.
Yeah, but
on a lot.
We get a couple weeks and we want to get it to you guys a week ahead.
Yeah, thank you for your comment.
Those deadlines. Thank you.
Well, I do have a motion then by Mr. Ballard to postpone this agenda item, which is PC 22009, preliminary site plan review for the applicant, which is Great Lakes Taco LLC. So, do I have support for that motion?
Yeah, I do.
Mr. Knoll supports the motion. Because of postponement, I'd like another roll call. Thank you, Susan.
Mr. Spiz.
Yes.
Hunwick.
Yes.
Noel.
Yes.
I don't
Berger?
understand.
Yes.
Bailey.
What it
Yes.
means.
Turner.
Yes.
Ballard.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, so this business now, new business for Taco Bell has been postponed. Well, now we're into the final site plan approval for the applicant of Lifted Industrial Partners, which is located at 653 South Pier Road. Is that petitioner here? And they are.
Do you need the?
Yeah, I think I need that one. Thank you.
I didn't realize you guys.
So you're gonna shut me off and go to your own, right?
Correct.
Okay, sir, I'll let you do that.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, we were doing final.
All right. My name is Chris Westerlund. I'm from TDG Architects. I'm here to talk about the Lifted Industrial Partners project. This is our final site plan approval. The site is located at 653 Lapeer Road, just north of Drainer. I believe it's an old auto parts store. Here's some photos of the existing site. Things to note about the existing site is this building was originally built, and then it appears that there were 2 additions added to the building. From this view, where that green canopy is, where those windows are, that appears to be one of those additions. As we move around the building, you can see where the door is kind of the center of that original part of the building. And as we move around in the very back, you can barely see in this photo, but it'll be more clear on the site plan. There's another addition here. So this existing building has this large front facade with this roof and has a existing gable roof structure going all the way back. If you look at the existing site plan, there's parking in the front, there's parking on the south side, and there's an existing dumpster enclosure that is damaged. And there is an existing, on the north side, kind of an alleyway now that it's there, but it isn't being utilized for anything. And what we're proposing with the site plan is to eliminate those addition areas. So what's being demoed is these kind of areas that were added on. And the new proposed building is approximately 6,000 square feet. We're proposing parking on the south side and the east side of the building with a fire lane exit on the north side of the building. The fire lane also contains the loading space that is required based on the amount, or based on the use of the property. While we've mentioned before in our previous meeting that the loading itself will actually be done by much smaller vehicles and at the door that is on the east side of the building. The parking in the front is being eliminated because this building falls under the 50% of the construction cost rule, we are not required to accommodate to the setbacks because we have the existing building. So the front setback, as you can see, in the side setback is within the building. We are proposing the green belts in the back, or I'm sorry, on the east side of the property that you can see on the landscape plan from the civil engineer. So for the demo plan, like I said before, we're demoing the kind of additions of the building, demoing the interior walls, and demoing a portion of the west side of the building. The proposed floor plan, while it's preliminary, shows you that the main ingress will be from the vestibule shown here on the south side, with curbside pickup parking spaces and specific exits for those, and then the egress required beyond that. Here are the elevations. This just shows the signage, which is a bit more clear in the renderings. All of our heights are within the allowance of the zoning ordinance, and our sign is below our top point of glazing, which was something that was mentioned previously. And you can see the existing on the back side and the new on the front. And then here are the renderings. So this shows, this is a view if you were driving north on Lapeer Road, what you would possibly see. We have our entrance, and then we have the signage is on the south side there. Fits within the square footage requirements and is below the top glazing. We have landscaping in front of the building. And then this is looking the other direction, so if you're looking more from where the car wash is to the north, the glazing will be tinted, although it is also, I believe the sill is at 6 feet 6 inches, so it is not, you would not be able to see into the to the center. And then a few things I want to mention based on the comments that we've already read from the engineer. Soil borings have been completed and the infiltration testing has been scheduled and is in process. Other comments that we've already addressed is the security plan has been submitted for the review based on the confidentiality that you guys mentioned in the previous. And then finally, the cut sheets for the lighting, we had those, but we weren't aware we had to submit them, so we submitted those as well today. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I appreciate that, thank you. Zach, why don't you get up at this point in time? I'm having trouble with my, it looks like something froze here or something, but you have comments, I know you do.
Yep, I'll do the quick version. So again, this is the final site plan review. Preliminary site plan and special land use were granted last month. The use is a special land use in this district. It also received approval from the Township Board for the medical provisioning license. As mentioned, the site and the building are considered legally non-conforming. The building is closer to the road than what you could do, but they're doing less work than what triggers the whole building to comply. So I'm going to focus on the couple of issues. Just the existing zoning under site data on sheet C3 should be revised to include the medical provisioning center. That's important for documentation. That's what allows the use to be there. It currently lists the C2, so that'd be important to add that on there for documentation. Already mentioned the setbacks. Access and circulation, it's basically what you saw at preliminary site plan. We just have the comments that it be reviewed and approved by the township engineer and the fire chief. At the previous meeting, you guys thought it would be okay to use that northern drive for the loading and unloading. It's not going to be used for folks coming in or out. Just kind of a relief service drive around there. The parking is generally consistent. The dimensions are what you require. There's a bit more parking than that's required. Let's see. And just a minor correction on some of the math for the number of parking spaces, what I noted there. I will leave essential services and utilities to Mr. Sharp. Landscaping and screening, there are a couple trees that are going to be preserved, just like was shown in the preliminary site plan. There's a lot of trees and landscaping that will be added. It's generally consistent with your zoning ordinance. The one thing is that some of the green belt on the southern lot line is not 20 feet. The parking lot currently goes actually past the property line. So at preliminary site plan, the planning commission seemed open to not requiring a green belt there, which is something that you can do. Exterior lighting, as mentioned, we did receive the cut sheets, so that those should just be copied and pasted into the final site plan that gets the stamp. The one thing that we still do note is some of the cut sheets indicated color temperature of 4,000 Kelvin. 4,000 Kelvin is pretty close to daylight. Your zoning ordinance doesn't have, in color temperature, your zoning ordinance doesn't have color temperature standard, but instead it says here are the light bulbs that you can use. And when you look at them, most of them are 3,000 Kelvin or less, or 3,200 Kelvin or less. So that's why we recommend that as a condition, so that LED is better for energy, but you want to have the consistent color. Signage. There is that location shown there. Not going to be a freestanding monument sign. Let's see, for the provisioning center, I'm just going to run down these again. There have been no changes, but it would not be co-located with any other marijuana uses. No growing on site. Has direct access from N24 Lapeer. It would be the 1,250 feet. 1,250 feet from any other provisioning center, and it's within the district. And as mentioned, the windows there are going to be above the eye height unless you're an NBA star looking through there. For site plan review criteria, there are a couple of details that aren't on there that your zoning ordinance says you need to be on there, but you can waive it if it doesn't affect your ability to review it for compliance. Relatively minor things. It doesn't describe the use of all the adjacent properties, show the required information 100 feet around the site, include a soils map, describe the maximum number of employees, or certain lighting details, although we've got the lighting details. Most of that information is known and doesn't appear to affect the review. As mentioned, they're doing the infiltration test for the stormwater management, or they've already done that. Your criteria for site plan review are in 12.5 of your zoning ordinance, and it appears that if conditions that are recommended are applied, that it would be consistent with that. The final reminder is that this body is the final approving authority. It does not go to the township board, so this is the last stop. Quick rundown, the findings and determinations, just a confirmation of the loading and unloading space, the landscaping buffer on the southern lot line. If you're okay with some of that information not being included, and the potential conditions, the approval from the fire chief and township engineer for access and circulation, those minor updates. Needs to get storm connection approval from MDOT, so the storm water is going to drain out to there. Add the lighting details to the final site plan that gets the stamps, the condition that the color temperature not be above 3,200 Kelvin, and a note added to the site plan that the outdoor lighting is turned off or dimmed in intensity. That's something that your zoning ordinance requires, but we'd like to have it on there so we can look and point and say that lights have to get quieter. And we did receive the security plan as mentioned, and we're going to be reviewing it shortly so that it is there and we do have it.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Mr. Sharp, it's your turn.
My turn?
Yeah.
Bad for Pete. He always gets the short end of the stick. He's always last, you know. So you can switch it up.
Want me to put him in front of you tonight?
No, not right now.
Okay. I don't want you to feel bad.
You should be in review of our final site plan review letter dated August 15th. Again, I'm just going to hit a couple of the high points. We also sent back a red line version of the plan set, just a lot of minor details, ticky-tack things to clean up on there. A couple of the bigger items that I look at with regards to sanitary sewer, they're already connected to the sanitary sewer. We just want to make sure that they're not going to utilize any more than was previously being used at that facility there. With regards to the water distribution, at the last meeting, it was my understanding that they were going to extend the water line that was currently on the Hubbard Spring property. There's an easement that goes down to Oakdale, and they were going to extend that along the back of their property. And I believe that the chief will also have some comments on that.
Now, when you say extend it from the Hubbard Spring place, does that mean moving it north?
South.
That's taking it south? Man, I'm really screwed up because I'm thinking where this place is, and then there's the car wash, and then the Hubbard Spring and all that's behind that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is just taking it south along their east border?
Yes.
Okay, so they would provide an easement for that? For the
There's already an easement in place.
It's already in place.
When the water main was constructed on the Hubbard Spring property, for their fire suppression needs, they extended it. They came down the entrance road from M24. They turned it south, and it extends across basically where the car wash is.
There is a jog there.
It stops there, yeah. It turns south.
Yeah, okay, that's what I'm...
But we did obtain an easement all the way down to Oakdale for a future extension, just like these businesses, you know, so that we can eventually connect it down to Oakdale.
Well, you couldn't go any further because the property you didn't have right to at that point in time, right? Okay, I got it.
That would allow them to put a hydrant, you know, on the property too, or
now I
near
get
the
it.
southeast corner of their property. And then, as Mr. Michelle's had indicated, their stormwater, they're proposing to take their stormwater out to a catch basin within the MDOT right away, so that'll need permits through MDOT there. Have some comments regarding their stormwater quality unit that needs to be installed. I'm sure that they'll be able to adhere to all that during the engineering design phase. A couple of where the garbage truck's going to come in and access, they only had 4-inch asphalt pavement through there. Where the garbage truck comes in, the township board
stiffened up.
Yep, like 6-inch asphalt, or you know, they have the concrete dumpster, but basically the drive lanes need to be beefed up. They're thicker than just where the parking stalls are themselves. But really, there's nothing that can't be overcome as we go through the engineering process and their permitting phase. So we were recommending final site plan approval.
And that's your August 15th letter?
That is correct.
I have it on my screen, but I don't have it up there because they're utilizing it.
Correct.
So that's good. You're saying that, in your opinion, all the documents submitted are sufficient for engineering?
Sufficient for site plan approval.
Right.
We need to get through engineering.
I didn't mean that yet, but yeah,
Yes.
they're good to move forward.
And they can accommodate that, in my opinion.
All right.
Yep.
I think I'm not trying to cut the chief off here. He's on 216. He's a couple pages away. Let me see if I can just pull you up, Pete. And
He does go last, but he has the...
I didn't mean to put him in the... Here we are. I found the letter. Okay.
Not a problem. I can make it really quick here.
Okay.
My normal things, obviously, the address is going to be on the front of the building. Knox box shall be installed. No parking will be on that north access drive, whatever you want to call it. And, you know, the main thing I had in my whole letter, Jim already talked about it, was the fire hydrant in the back of it, getting that water line extended down to the south property line.
Yeah, just so you have another one down there.
Correct, because otherwise I don't have any water on that side of the street, so I can't be laying 5-inch hose across M24, so.
Oh yeah, okay, I got you.
Kind of hurts when a semi-truck runs over it when you're on the end of the hose, so.
Okay, doke.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz.
Bless you.
Thank you. Planning Commission? Oh boy, here we go again.
No, this is short.
Wait, Mr. Spitz had his hand up.
I'm sorry.
I'm going down to the end this time.
Oh, thank you, appreciate it, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question for our fire chief. Can we get a fire truck around that back corner? Down that line? That just looks tight. Maybe it's just me.
No. It's not really intended to be a fire lane going down through there anyhow, but I'm keeping it clear, so that way we would work that side of it, but we're not going to be driving the truck down through there. So.
Thank you. You're just going to cover me.
Is that your only question?
That is my only question.
Wow, Mike, that's pretty good. Mr. Where'd he hide on me here? Oh, he went way back. Mr. Knoll?
Yes, one thing I just want to be clear on, Zach did a great job with the security and lighting. There is in our ordinance a waste disposal plan that needs to be included. It's on 5.35, item J, number 2, under our marijuana uses.
Zach, has that been something that we have to deal with at this particular moment?
It will need to be submitted. It's one of those things that the state also requires it.
Okay.
But it would be good for us to have that plan too, so we can check and make sure, so that, including that.
So is that going to be a condition?
No, it's just...
It's part of the regulation of the marijuana.
Right, not forgot about.
Oh.
It's a condition already, but if you really want to.
We don't have to go that far with it. No. Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to know. Okay, Mr. Hunwick, Mr. Ballard, you good yet?
I'm good.
Let's go this way, Mr. Turner, let's go to you.
In looking at the plans, and I don't know whether you've got the floor plans or not to bring them up, but
We do have floor plans for this job, I thought. But he could pull them up. He can pull them up on his right now because he's on the screen. Right there they are.
Okay. My question is, you've got this big warehouse area in the back.
Yeah, these are...
Here you got a receiving aisle. No door between those two?
Yeah, this is very preliminary. Basically what we did is we laid out the square footage we need for the provisioning center, and we have this leftover area that is likely going to be some type of secondary, not necessarily long-term storage, but a warehouse for the retail. So when they bring something in, it'll be here. So what I'm trying to say is there likely will be a door there, but we just haven't finalized those things.
Okay. Understand what I'm asking, Tom?
Yes, sir. I get it. Mr. Bailey?
If you go to the one elevation drawing.
The renderings or the elevations?
The elevation. That area, the retail, is that getting a new higher ceiling and a flat roof? Because right now you've got a gable roof going all the way to the back with a fake facade on the front.
Correct.
But that one rendering had that look like it was going around the side with a real high parapet wall, which...
So what's being proposed is no higher than what is existing there, but you are correct in saying that a portion of that existing gable is being demolished so that we didn't have to work around a beam that tall. In our preliminary renderings, when we were here last time, our elevations actually were taller because we were trying to hide that peak so it wasn't sticking up behind what we were proposing. In this proposal, we're demolishing a portion of that existing gable roof to bring that roof on the west side lower, and then we have the kind of this parapet wall that you mentioned, and the entrance are lower than what is existing there.
Okay.
You have to almost see the existing one to know what he's talking about, which you sound like you have.
Yeah, yeah, if you go right there to that next one.
Right.
And go around the side there.
Right there. That's the gable that goes all the way to the back.
Right, and that other rendering showed that part of that roof was going back with the high parapet wall, but if that gable was staying where it had the fake front, that's going to be a very high parapet wall if somebody has to go over that.
So this facade roof is being removed, and then we can imagine that we have this gable here. The gable actually is maybe 1 foot below this at this point in the existing. And then when I'm going to go to this rendering, the last one, so the gable roof is actually back here. We have this screen here that's going to act as our mechanical unit screen. So when we put our rooftop units up there, so this is going to be that screen wall for that. So the roof is at, a foot below this. This isn't necessarily a parapet, but it's a screen for where those units are going to be.
Okay.
It's interiorly done from the actual exterior part of the wall.
Okay. Well, that was my question, is because if that was a parapet, firefighter going over that wall's got quite a drop to the roof.
Right. I thought you were talking about this one, so I apologize.
Okay, that answers my question.
Any other questions from any of the planning commission members? Ed, none? No. I guess I'd look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Okey-doke. You've been doing it.
This is a resolution for final site plan for marijuana provisioning center submitted by Thomas D. D'Agostino on behalf of the Lift Industrial Partners 2 LLC for property located at 653 South Lapeer Road, Section 26 of Oxford Township. Parcel number ID 0426300005. Thomas D. Agostino, applicant, on behalf of Lift Industries Partners 2 LLC, pursuant to the provisions of the Oxford Township zoning ordinance, submitted an application for final site plan on July 26, 2022, and whereas the applicant submitted a 26-page site plan on July 26, 2022, with a last revision date of July 29, 2022, prepared and stamped by Brian Gill, a licensed architect, and Michelle Peterson, a licensed professional engineer, and whereas the Oxford Township Board of Trustees approved a marijuana provisioning center license on August 13, 2022, and whereas the Planning Commission granted a preliminary site plan approval and site special land use approval on July 14, 2022, and whereas the Planning Commission received a report from Zach Michelle, Planning Consultant, dated August 4, 2022, and whereas the Planning Commission has received a report from Jim Sharp, Engineering Consultant, dated August 15, 2022, whereas the Planning Commission received a report from Pete Schultz, Oxford Fire Department Chief, dated August 12, 2022, and whereas the Planning Commission has received a report from Susan Morrison, Township Attorney, dated August 15, 2022, and whereas the site plan is located within the C2 General Commercial and MP Marijuana Provisioning Overlay District, whereas the marijuana provisioning centers are a special land use in the MP Marijuana Provisioning Overlay District, and whereas the Planning Commission at its August 25th, 2022 meeting reviewed the final site plan and did not receive public comment, and whereas the final site plan is substantially consistent with the approved preliminary site plan, and whereas the approval of the final site plan grants the applicant the ability to submit application for construction and establish the site plan and use, and whereas the Planning Commission has authority to approve or deny final site plans as provided in 12.3 C3 Planning Commission action and 19.4 site plan review of the zoning ordinance, and wherein the Planning Commission grants a waiver for information missing from the final site plan as allowed in 12.3 C2 information required of the zoning ordinance, and whereas the Planning Commission finds the site plan meets or would meet the standards of 12.05A through 12.050 of the zoning ordinance site plan approval standards. Now therefore be it resolved, the Planning Commission by the majority vote at the duly noticed regular meeting held this day 25th day of August 2022 approves the final site plan for Lift Industrial Partners 2 for property located at 653 South Lapeer, Section 26 of Oxford Township, parcel ID number 0426303005, subject to the conditions listed below. Parking calculations include the number of accessible parking spaces, update on the final site plan, utilities and stormwater management approval by the township engineer, stormwater connection approval by MDOT, fixture cutoff details added to the final site plan, color temperature less than 32 Kelvin with a note added to the final site plan. A note consisting with 10.2E1 of the zoning ordinance requires outdoor lighting to be turned off or reduced in intensity between 11 p.m. and sunrise added to the final site plan. Security plan to be provided for administration review. Address shall be displayed on the front of the building. Knock box shall be installed. Water main at the rear of the property shall be extended to the south property line with a fire hydrant at the south end of it. No parking fire lane sign shall be installed along the drive north side of the building. Sanitary sewer base design shall be added to the final site plan. A water main basis for design shall be added to the final site plan. Other engineering comments addressed as part of the engineering plan review. This final site plan shall be expire and be of no effect after 365 days following the approval, and this approval shall only be valid upon acceptance of the applicant of any condition of this approval and signed by this resolution.
That was a little long. Keeping up with that one. Yeah, it was a nice motion, by the way. Thank you. Do we have support for the motion?
I'll support it.
Mr. Knoll made the motion, very lengthy. I think he included more than I would have thought. Mr. Turner supported the motion. I'd like another roll call vote this evening.
Hunwick,
Yes.
Spiz,
Yes.
Knoll,
Yes.
Bailey,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Ballard.
Yes.
Well, that
Motion
passed. Wow. That's pretty cool. It's a hell of a motion. That concludes the planning commission issues on what we had for new business. We're into communications and committee reports, if there are any. Economic Development Committee, do we have anything there?
Haven't met?
Haven't met. Ordinance Review Committee, we got more than we should probably want to talk about at this moment. I think we did very, very well this past week in the fact that we got, what was it, 425 different parcels included in that zoning mess? Jeepers. Why don't you just tell them briefly, because the ORC's been really, really busy.
Yeah, we're just about done with our priority list for this year, and it's not even September yet, so that's pretty darn good. The large bulk of amendments that we did, the residential plan unit development, the site plan article, the zoning map amendments, and a couple of other things are going to be effective this Friday. We are in the process of recodifying that. We believe we've got all the pieces back in there. We're also putting some hyperlinks within the document, so if you look at the PDF online, you look at the table of contents, it'll pop you down to that section.
20th century, I like it.
Exactly. There's still some wiggliness with Microsoft Word, so we may not get full functionality. We are also putting in some histories at the very back as an appendix, so that if you want to know when this section changed, on what date was it effective, you'll be able to find that instead of having to research through Clerk Wright's office. And there were 425 properties that went from one zoning district to another zoning district, or to the entirely newly created institutional, my apologies, public, quasi-public district. That map will be available, the large size, starting on Monday, and probably next week we'll be able to get the codified version up onto the website and hard copies for everyone to look at. We're not going to try to do a couple of pages update, because there's like 75 pages of updates, so you just get new ones.
Send me electronic copy.
Yep.
No paper.
Thank you, Zach. You know, Zach, while you were up there, I was going to ask you for the next portion of tonight's meeting if you had anything to comment. Wait.
An ordinance review subcommittee.
Well, he is the ordinance review subcommittee as part of it.
I know he's part of it, but I do have a question.
Okay, what's the question?
Chickens.
Chicken. So, yep, your zoning ordinance, I'm going to take us back in time to the 1950s when most zoning ordinances started to pop up. The thought was, if you're going to have livestock, you're going to be a farmer. And so most of them say, if you're in a residential area, no livestock, including chickens or goats or pigs or llama or any other things like that. Your zoning ordinance allows keeping of livestock, which includes chicken by your definition, in your suburban farm districts and your ag districts. It does not allow it in your R3 districts. It has been becoming more common in cities to allow it. Oxford Village, as you heard, does allow it. So kind of the thought is, if you guys think it's important, the general process you followed is that you recommend it, or you bring it to the township board, whether or not they want to bless it, because we're going to generate billables to work on that. There are a couple ways that it could be addressed, but it'd be a good discussion if it's something you want to look at.
I do have a question. Didn't a group sign a petition and give it to the township board, and then the township board sent them in a different direction? Is that not the case? Mr. Knoll, do you know?
No, sir. I don't know about that.
I swear they signed a petition where they came in front of the township board and they gave them direction to go through a process.
What direction did they give
Years
them?
ago?
No, recently.
What direction did they give
I
them?
don't remember them.
I thought a group came in front of the township board asking for.
I mean, I
Board
haven't missed a
changed
township board meeting except for this past one in a long time, and I don't remember anybody coming and presenting anything to the township board in recent
It
years.
was public comment, I'm sure. No?
No, they never showed up. I think the
Oh.
township board expected people to show up and
They
nobody
were
ever came.
invited.
Okay, I just assumed they didn't. I swear they were given direction to do so.
No, tonight's the first time anybody spoke about it.
Okay, my mistake then. Corrected. Can't believe it's on Facebook.
Next on the agenda would be if there's any comments from our engineer, Mr. Sharp. Don't have any, you got anything new to tell us? Something good?
Questions? CJ's been pretty active trying to get some grants. He recently got another grant to extend sanitary. We originally had a grant to extend sanitary sewer in front of the hospital, essentially where it leaves off up to Dunlap Road, and CJ secured another grant to extend that sanitary sewer into the Brab Dewey area. So, Mr. Nold, I believe that was on the. Was that on your special meeting agenda last night to approve the authorization to proceed with that design work through there?
Design work or build?
Just design work right now. Just design work right now. We also had a little walk around with Miss Slotkin with regards to the railroad safety path for the township to try to secure $345,000 worth of funds to build a safety path along North Oxford Road and Ray Road by the high school. So we had that a couple days ago. So, I mean, he's doing a great job, but from a planning perspective...
I have a question, since you brought the safety path up.
Sure.
I was at our recent HOA meeting, and I was singled out as being the person to find out the reason why, and I told them, but they didn't believe me, but they want to know when they're going to get their safety path completed from the Seymour Lake Park to the village.
From Seymour Lake Park, basically to Dunlap Road, because we have it to Dunlap Road right now.
It's all financial, but they want to know
partially
why
financial
are being directed to this particular safety path, because they're the only residents in the community that count, apparently.
Partially financial is partially because we have not been able to secure all of the easements out to that. The only segment of pathway that we have, we could theoretically construct right now would be from Dunlap Road down to Sanders. We do have all of those easements / right-of-way in place. But yeah.
What's the estimated cost to finish that? That's what I want to know.
Up to Seymour Lake Park?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't even remember. It's in the millions.
It's in the millions, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a bridge. We have to cross the bridge right here. So it's a significant investment. And because we don't have a millage, there's just not, you know, you might get a contribution from a developer who says, I want to do the cash in lieu of, and okay, here's a check for 50 grand, you know, like JT Electric or something. It's going to take a lot of 50 grands to get the millions of dollars that are needed. So that is a discussion that's been happening at the Safety Path Committee is...
That's where you go to past the hat.
Yeah.
I just realistically, that would never happen. It's never going to get completed in the next 10 to 15 years.
I wouldn't say that. Again, there have been discussions about potentially going out for a safety path millage, you know, within the next couple of years, maybe in the next presidential election cycle or something. There has been
most communities
discussion.
They do a safety path millage.
Orion has a safety path millage, and you see what they're able to build down there. That's the only way that we're going to be able to do that.
And to maintain and to keep it.
We may get some grant money here and there, and we may get
not that much money. Feds aren't that generous.
Correct.
Well, they might do a sidewalk relief, like the
some dots, put some dots on the concrete.
Yeah.
It's always been a sticky point, you know. The millage has. I think they tried it about 15 or 20 years ago, and it didn't pass. But you know, the community has changed now. People want to get out and be accessible and walk and be able to get to the park. So, who knows? I mean, but that's where that's at.
All right, thank you.
All right.
I think it's time for adjournment.